Power off.
Okay. Just waiting notification. Okay, boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this afternoon. We have three magnificent panelists who are joining us today, who are going to give us some incredible information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than Brother Enoch, Brother Amzai, and Brother Michael. Assalamu alaikum, sirs.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you all very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come back and have a conversation with us. As a continuation from last week, we received a lot of positive comments and a lot of bearing witness to the early 90s. Sister Miriam says, Assalamu alaikum, family. Alaikum salam, ma'am. And thank you all for coming back. We're going to start with Brother Michael this time with how did you first join the task force, sir?
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Josh.
Alaikum salam, sir.
I want to begin in the name of Allah, the beneficent. I bear witness that there is but one God whose proper name is Allah, and I bear witness in Master Farad Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Brother Josh, I appreciate you and inviting me on your show.
Yes,
brother, what you're doing. My introduction to the task force happened in the early 90s. It was the summer of 1990. So I was in school. Many of the brothers who came into the task from Chicago were at different stages and points in their life. I was one of the brothers who was already in college when I got introduced to the nation, when I got introduced to the task force. And my cousin, Brother Herb, he was already a part of the task force. He was already in the Nation of Islam. And so Brother Herb would send me information. He would call, he was excited about sharing, his experience with the minister. He would send me for the final calls. And I was at Hawthorne State in Mississippi. So I had come across the nation at all, other than, I would drive by Stony Island and I would see the mosque, but I didn't really know what it was. My cousin Herb, who was at that time, he was the first lieutenant of the task. He was sharing information with me. So I was excited when to come home and kind of learn more about the mosque, learn more about the nation. And at that time, while I was in school, I was college, I was running and doing what most brothers and young brothers in college do. I was having a good time. I was on my studies, but I was doing my drinking, my smoking, having fun, experimentation, all of that. And when I came back home, Herb was like, he had just been waiting because he was like, man, I know you're going to love this like I love it. And so it was interesting because I came back home and it was like the first or second day I was there. I just came back off the train, and the task force was going on a run. And so as the task force was always doing out in the community, working with young people. So Herb comes over my house. He's driving Cherokee Chief. We used to call it the Blunder. It was an old 1970 something Jeep Cherokee Chief, right? That all of us used to pile in and go. So he comes over, to pick me up, and the car is packed with brothers in the task force. Akeem, Aaron, Zai. I'm trying to remember. Were you there at that time, Zai? But the car was packed, and I come out, and I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting to see a whole lot of brothers in the car. But this is my cousin, so I jump in. We rolling. So he was going to a service on 71st Street, 71st and Jeffrey. And like I said, I was a college kid, man. I grew up in Chicago, but I was never, really on the streets with any of the street organizations. I was, in school, I was doing my thing. I was in college. I had on my, green sweater, green pants, olive shoes, all the brothers was suited and booted with bow ties and everything. I was like, wow, this is strange to me because I didn't even know my cousin like that. And so we got there on 71st and Jeffrey, and we're going into a service, and it was strange because I didn't fit with the brothers that was on the street. I didn't fit with the brothers that was in the task that I was rolling with. Akeem was pissed off at her because you didn't bring anybody from the outside, but Herb was like, he was like, nah, man, this is my. So we go inside, and I'm standing there, and Akeem begins to speak to the brothers in the service, and it was strange for me because, like I said, I didn't fit in with either group, and he's speaking, and he's sharing the teachings on Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the truth was powerful. And I'm looking around, and I'm seeing brothers that straight up, they straight up killers. They feel like, and so, and I'm seeing crocodile tears come down their eyes. I'm seeing everybody in the room being affected, and I'm like, wow, I never seen nothing like this before. And it was nothing but young brothers. At that time, I think I was 18 at the time, and everybody else was right around those ages, a little bit younger, maybe a few people a little bit older, but everybody was right in those ages. And by the time it finished, I was like, wow, I have never experienced anything like this before. And as we went out, we were leaving, because there were so many young brothers that had gathered. The police had pulled up. So it was 2 or 3 police cars. There was some police walking on the street. And when we came out, brother, it was like a scene in the Malcolm movie before the movie came out. When we came out, the police were on the street, and some of them were walking up, and the brothers came out. The brothers were in the diamond around Akeem. And I was looking, I didn't really fit, but I was walking with them, right? And the police were coming up, and Akeem kind of waved and was like, we're cool, we got this. And so they saw the task, they saw the FOI, they saw the suit and bow ties, they saw the order that we had, and they turned around and got back in the car and drove away. 2 or 3, 4 cars. I was like, oh my God. I mean, my mind was blown. That left an indelible impression on me. I was like, who are you? Right? I'm like, what did you just get into? What did you bring me into, Herb? Right? And so, because I had never been to the mosque before, my first contact with the Nation of Islam was the task force doing what the task force does, being out in the street, teaching, working for the resurrection of our people, particularly young people. So from that point, that evening, I was with the task, and I'm asking questions, and that whole night, into the night, me, Herb, Akeem, Aaron, we were talking, and I'm asking questions. And so how Brother Amzai and Brother Enoch said last week, how we would study all night. It was a week. My first orientation was a week of. That was a Friday. That Saturday, there was another run that I went on. That Sunday, I came to the mosque and Brother Wali spoke. And I heard Brother Wali speak, and it was powerful. Monday, Tuesday, when it was almost every day, there was some run. So all day I was running. From that point on, it was like I had a suit, so I start processing immediately, right? And so I was, running with the task the whole day. I was studying the whole night, asking questions again for a whole week. That next Sunday, the minister spoke. Blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind, and I recited that Monday.
Do you remember which lecture it was?
I don't remember the title of the lecture, Brother Enoch.
And when did you get your ex?
It was 1990, that summer. So it had to be when I came home. that had to be, so that had to be like June of 1990. So I had to look that up to see what lecture it was, but it absolutely blew my, and the thought in my mind was, man, if this man is not Jesus, he is definitely one of his disciples. And that was it for me, because I came up in the church, and I had always, I was always reading, studying the Bible. I had a foundation, of scripture and everything else. And so, even in the church, when the preacher would say something, and I'm like, no, that ain't right, that because that's not what it says. And so we had the study guide. I was given the study guide that Brother Amzai and Brother Enoch had mentioned, and Brother Marvin last week, where we were able to parse. This is proving the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Bible, the Quran. And so before I even got a Quran, because the brother Herb gave me a Quran, and I was like, man, I don't even want to read that yet. I just want to, and they gave me that study guide, and I was able to prove, or to my satisfaction, I was able to satisfy that the truth of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad could be proven in the Bible. And by reading and studying that study guide, and then I opened the Quran that Brother Herb gave, and it was over. It was over. Yeah. And another thing, I was tripped because my mom was a librarian, right? And so I always had books around me, books in the house. I told my mom about the nation, and I was studying. She's like, "Oh, yeah, that's nice." And she said, "Here, I'm gonna give you some." She went in the garage and went into a box and pulled out two of the old, a copy of the old hardcover, Message to the Black Man, Fall of America. I said the old hardcovers from the 70s, right? And so I was like, "You had this in here all my life?" I'm like, "Wait, hold up. This has been here and I never," and they were in boxes. And I was like, "Oh my God." And so that was my indoctrination. It was from day one. It wasn't a slow indoctrination. It wasn't dip your toe in the water. It was from day one being plunged in and sprinting, because I was introduced to the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to the work that the task force was doing, and I was hooked. And so Herb knew, I mean, the brothers knew that was the way to get our young people, because we needed to be doing something. We needed to be doing the work, not sitting around, not philosophizing. We could study and philosophize all night, but we needed to be doing the work. And that's how I was introduced, and that's how I got hooked.
Praise be to Allah. Beautiful. Yes, sir. And thank you, everyone who's watching all around the world. Thank you, Brother Adio Nasor, who said, "Assalamu alaikum." Thanks for the sacrifice and sharing. One love back to you, sir. To you, Brother Amzai, a lot of the guests that I interview, I always ask about their family and friends. What advice would you give to people who first hear the teachings, accept them, how to keep the unity with the family and friends who aren't in the nation? Like, that first initial, some people could go home, they throw pork away, they start, they make it bad, it could be bad when you first hear it. So what advice would you give to, keeping your family, connected to you while you're, active?
When I recited again, April 8th of 1991. Just real quick, this is the study guide that Mike talking about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's it.
90. I literally had this since 1991.
Right. Yep.
But for me, when I joined the nation, my coming up as a Hebrew Israelite, then my mom, my dad divorced. She took us back to the church. I clashed with a lot of my family, the older members of my family. My cousins, I had some cousins, a couple of cousins that were vice lords. So they didn't bother me. They was like, man, Zion, I'm proud of you. Cause I mean, I was, you know, into the streets. I belonged to, you know, I was in one of the gangs here on the South Side. And the nation, that's what saved me. So the older members of my family I clash with. Well, you know, you brainwashed now. And so we would go at it sometimes. I'm dealing with it. But those in my generation, my cousins, they were fine with it. Because like I said, a couple of them were vice lords. So they knew about Islam. They opened it, and it's the service that Mike talked about, those with the Blackstones. So those were the factions of the gangs that were familiar with Islam. They opened up with the Al-Fatiha, standing on, you know, you're standing on your square. So as I got older and I matured in my understanding of the teachings, my understanding of Islam, I started to, again, with us being forced to study, I started to use the example that the minister gave us. So instead of trying to point out those negatives, point out those things that are common. So the older members of my family, I began to conversate with them on a deeper understanding of Jesus, a deeper understanding of what he taught. And that was able to kind of bridge the disconnect between me and my family in that generation. So it got to a point, one of my uncles, he started coming to Savior's Day. Mm-hmm. I remember my mom, she gave me and my little brother hell. She talked about the minister so bad sometimes. And I mean, it was some stuff was foul. I'm like, Mama, come on, Ma. I'm like, so I was like, so you were upset and was fussing at me because I was out in the streets. Wow. And now that I have the teaching, the nation got me on the straight and narrow, you still not happy? And me and my mom used to go back and forth with it. And I remember minister, don't go back and forth with your parents. Like, brother minister, you don't know this lady. This woman is crazy. And so, but yeah, so I started to just, you know, go into a deeper understanding of Christianity and what Jesus taught. And that was able to bridge the gap between me and the older generation in my family. And that produced a respect from them. And they was, I have one aunt, as a matter of fact, I talked with, she sent me a picture earlier today when I was a little boy. She says, she says, I don't, agree with what you all, learn in the nation of Islam with the minister. She said, but I see how you've changed with it. So when I stopped clashing with her and having those conversations on what was common, then it just changed everything. So that would be my advice to anybody coming in the nation with your family. Don't contend with them like that. One, be the example of what we teach and what we stand for. So be that example of righteousness. Be that example of clean living. Be that example of clean thinking. Then from that point on, as we grow and study and mature in the teachings, when we go back amongst our family, don't beat them up. Why you don't believe this, you don't believe that. No, you find what's common and build from there. Teach on Black Jesus, on him not being a white man. That's fine. And some of our family may, what difference does it make? He can be all colors. Now, if he came from a woman, he was a color. So things like that, you can teach on. I remember the minister saying during the holidays, go be with your family. Because I used to stay away. I'm not dealing with this Christmas tree, this Santa Claus, this white Jesus. And so he was like, no, don't go away. Go be with your family. Teach on the principles. So of the holidays, sharing and caring and love. So that's what I started to do early on, and that changed everything. So it got to a point where my family members, the older generation, was calling me for advice and understanding. What about this? And has the minister ever taught about that? And those of my generation, they would ask me, call and ask questions. And then when we all start having children, they would call me to give advice to their children, come mentor their children and show them about being a man. And it's still the same now. So some of my younger cousins and brothers and sisters, Zai's, it's like I'm a superstar. Because Zai, you were the nation. I know you used to be around the minister. So even the family members that are older than me, some of my brothers that are older than me and younger than me, they look up to me now because I'm trying to be that example. And I'm not perfect, and they know where I come, they know the hell that I came out of. But because of living the life or striving to live the life, you become the light. And so that would be the advice. Be the light, live the life, find those commonalities, and build from there. And we can unite the family with just that alone.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir, Rams. And thank you, everyone who's watching all across the country. For you, Brother Enoch, mentorship is something that a lot of young people are craving, subconsciously and or consciously. Who were some of the mentors that assisted you during your young, days in the task force?
Wow, it's quite a few. It's funny, when people think of mentorship, and I know quite a few people, we don't like the connotation of that word because of its Greek origins. So, however, coming just straight with what it is that is produced by mentorship, from afar, I would say that the minister was always a mentor from afar. I didn't get a chance to really sit down and start talking to the minister until, like Zai said, we came in 1991. March 26th was my born date. And I didn't get a chance to, go to the dinner. I think the task had a chance to go to dinner. Is it once or twice with the minister?
We went once the summer of 91, and then because he invited us. He wanted to meet all the brothers from the work that we were doing. And then in 1993, after Aaron died, he invited us to the palace. He met with us briefly. And that's when he gave us some instructions. He was going to do the lecture, and he wanted all of us to write him after the lecture. So it was twice that the task met with him.
Okay. So I didn't come into the task until that November of 91. So, when it comes to just the idea of mentoring, you got the afar mentoring. It's kind of like that mastermind principle where you may not see the person and get a chance to sit down and talk to them, but you listen, you study. So I would say starting off with the minister, that was number one from afar in terms of being able to watch and study and listen. However, up close and personal, because me and Brother Shebaniah, we came into the squad called Al Jihad. So it was a lot of older brothers. And I don't know if you all remember brothers like Brother Elliot, brother with the wavy
yes,
hair.
Sir. Yes, sir.
I'll be pleased with him. He was in Al Jihad, and Brother Julius and Brother Larry.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thinking about some of these brothers just is funny because at every step in my first year, I would say that there was always some brother who was older, more experienced, but they was able to communicate information that was needed at that time, and to get into your backside. Because I remember Brother Richard. I think he was a second officer at that time.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Man,
Mike laughing because he remembered the name we used to call him.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say that, but yeah, Brother Richard, go ahead. Go ahead,
oh
brother.
yeah, Oh
he
yeah.
he was a mentor for us.
Oh yeah, brother Richard. I'm not gonna go too deep, but hey, but you know what though? He was one of those who, you know, when it was time to correct, hey, he made sure that when I went off, you know, the path, you know, he made sure that he corrected me, as well as those who strengthened me to make sure that I understood, you know, the value of basic things like, you know,
And love. That's what I remember about Brother Richard, but his correction with love, you know.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, so it's a lot of, oh, I can't forget this brother. And may Allah be pleased with this brother. Back then, his name was Brother Johnny. I don't think it was Johnny 2X or something, but he
Yes,
became
sir.
Khalil.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Leo. Yes, sir.
I know you had remember Brother Khalil, Josh.
Yes, sir. Of course. I didn't. When you said Brother Johnny, I was like, I don't even know Brother Johnny. All I knew
Yeah,
was Brother Khalil.
he was Brother Johnny at the time. When I first came in, he was Brother
Yes,
Johnny.
sir.
I'll never forget. I went out soldiering and I took a bundle with me. And I think I sold like 91 papers that day. And so they brought me up and they said, these two brothers sold the most papers in one day. And so we got one of the younger brothers and we got one of our older younger brothers. And so at the time, I think he might have been 61. I mean, he was up there in age.
Yes, sir.
And so he sold like 120 something papers. And so they brought us up, and of course, with that brother, anytime you wanted to discuss anything with him, you know, talk to you about consistency, you know, and finding a way to be out there to be able to service our people and minister to our people with the paper. So he was, again, it was different brothers coming from different angles, different perspectives, different types of expertise. You know, the older brothers I met that had businesses. Brother David, I think he was from Jamaica, I think, that was in Al Jihad, but he had several businesses in Harvey. And you know, he had a family. So he was one of those that I was able to kind of look at because I'm watching him, you know, do what he do. And he had to balance more than I could understand because at that time I wasn't married, didn't have any children, of course. So I didn't know, you know, that kind of lifestyle, but I watched him, you know. So I would say there was quite a few brothers who I would say that I was in close proximity to before coming to the task that I was able to kind of look at and learn from. And that was very helpful to be able to do that. And of course, when we came into the task, you know, 78 brothers, then you got all kind of people that you're watching then up close because we had so many that, and as Mike was saying, you get different backgrounds. Some was Crips from LA that came to Chicago. You know, some might have been under the 5 or 6, you know, coming from Chicago. Some may have, like Mike said, college students. Some was in high school, you know, that came to the task. Some was involved in music, you know. Some was out there serving and stopped serving and coming to the, you know, to the nation. So, you know, so then you begin to get a whole bunch of, you know, different personalities, different types of experiences, but they also help, you know, they serve the purpose. So I would just put it like that. Like we had so many that it was a blessing, you know, in the 90s to have, and I got to talk about the God Squad too. God Squad, those older brothers, they was kind of, they had the energy of the task force, but they was in the final call days with that energy.
Yeah, that was brother Barney in that group. Yep.
Yeah, Brother Theron and, you know, Brother Nile, and there's all these brothers who they had to have that energy and that spirit when, you know, to even get to the point of saying we got the mosque back. So we got some serious pioneers that, you know, Brother James 2X, may Allah please be pleased with him, that passed away, the Leotis fleet, Brother Leotis.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Excellent. People showing you our love all across the country. Our brother Daryl, the DI of Chicago, says Enoch and Amzai and Michael and nothing but a task. The soldiers, praise be to Allah. People showing you our love. Thank you very much. To you, Brother Michael, how important has been the training of the task force? How has that helped you in your life leading to the man you are today?
Brother, the training that we went through in the task force, the initial the initial 2.5 to 3 years of training, of me coming from school, coming back home during the summer, trying to put into practice the things that I learned at school and on a college campus in an environment where there were no other Muslims. Having to recharge and going through the training and being able to be on the phone and going back to school, being able to be on the phone and call and get advice and get, brother, that training has, that's the foundation of my life. That is the foundation of who I am today. The best of who I am today. When, you know, one of the things that absolutely turned me on the most in the Nation of Islam was the ministers' self-improvement study guides. I didn't know at the time, but the self-improvement study guides, in that is the basis for every personal development program that is popular today. You go back to Napoleon Hill, you go back to all of the people today, you go back to you go to Wayne Dyer, you go to anybody who the father of personal development. Yeah, all of that, the basis of it, self-examination, self-analysis, self-correction. That he gave us, we didn't know at the time. That is the basis, like he said, the base of community development. That's the basis of everything. And today, if we hold to that, every personal development program, you'll see more insight into what they're saying based on what the minister wrote. And so that, for me and for us, that was the basis, the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, self-improvement. That was the basis of everything that we did, because we were not I mean, one of the toughest things for young people and old people today is to be able to receive correction, to be able to hear. I mean, you can be on a professional level, on a job, if you're running your own business, to be able to go into a situation, you made a mistake. We learn by trial and error. We learn by making corrections. And we learn that in our teens. There are people that are in their 50s today who cannot take correction, who cannot say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can just listen to somebody correct them, take what is most valuable from it, and then apply it in their lives and make, and do better. That in and of itself, brother, I mean, that is monumental. Because you can talk to people on a professional level at a job or whatever, and you're trying to give them information that will be helpful to, and they're constantly fighting you, constantly, I wasn't wrong. Brother, the nation, the task, the teachings, that took that away from us. People don't even understand just yes, sir, no, sir, and shut the hell up. You ain't got nothing to say. Yes, sir, no, sir. And listen. Just those basics, brother, are powerful. And then you go into everything else that we did. And I talked about, the security, the diamond, Enoch, all of the things that we are understanding, that when you're in a group situation, and it can be a volatile situation, and you already know one person speaks. They know everybody. You can't, if you're being interrogated by the police, you can't ask me a question and I'm gonna answer you. It's one man that's gonna speak. That's it. You're not gonna divide us. You're not gonna be able to trick us and pull one off into. No, it don't work like that. The training that every group that, and Brother Amzai, Brother Enoch, all of us have gone into, as we've gone into different groups and have gone into leadership, groups that were already existing and we've risen into leadership, and groups that we created. And rose into leadership. And those basic teachings, those things are the things that we share with other men that are powerful, and it absolutely changes. It absolutely changes the dynamic in the group. It causes respect. It creates love. It creates obedience. It creates the type of brotherhood that in those days, we didn't even understand the value of what we had.
Mm-hmm.
We did. We were drinking in, like the alchemists, we were drinking in that which changed base metal into gold.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were doing on a daily basis, based on the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and us as young people trying to absolutely apply it. But we had, we were blessed with, Brother Salim is Brother Aaron's father.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We were blessed that the training that we had came from the best of sources, came from the best and most powerful of sources. So what we were getting, it wasn't like, and I'm not, what we got was the best of FOI training.
Brother Joshua, I think Brother Marvin is trying to come in. He just shot me a text message.
Oh, Marvin, okay, hold on 1 second. Yes, sir. Excellent point, Brother Michael. And to you, Brother Amzad, piggybacking off of what he was just saying, but actually pivoting from what he was saying about, you spoke about a meeting at the palace.
Yes.
What words did the minister give to you all to try to help, heal you all during a tough situation?
That was the second meeting after Aaron died. But he invited all us over to the house. He wanted to talk to us. I think that was on a Tuesday. And we didn't have a seat, anything like that. And he told, he explained to us that we were heavy on his mind and his spirit, that he understood what was going on, and he wanted to address some of the issues in a lecture, which was going to be that following Wednesday at Muhammad University, and that was on April 7th. So that meeting at the palace was April 6th. And he said he was praying for us that we would heal and come up out of everything that happened. And it was genuine, and I can tell he was bothered. And Brother Salim told me from that whole ordeal that one of the things that when he go back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was going to ask the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, why did Aaron have to die that way? What was the purpose of his death, and what we all were going through? And so when he did the lecture the following Wednesday, he was asking the questions, and there was a lot of behavior, some things that he talked about that a lot of us didn't know, as we said last week. So there were certain behaviors that was amongst certain people, but he got to the root of suicide and homosexuality. And that's when he asked the believers, the nations, to pray for us. And he said he wanted to hear from us after, what our thoughts about the lecture and everything. And, in that lecture, he gave us and the nation guidance on how to heal and help those who are suffering from that. I wrote him. I never heard back. I was, at that time, I was 20 years old, 21 years old at the time. That was 93. Yep, I was 20 years old. And when he did that lecture, I wrote him. I was expecting, a phone call back or a letter back. But
bless your heart.
Exactly. I didn't know no better. And I was still on the security team at that time, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe he'll say something about it next time we on the detail. And he never said it, but over the years, he's answered every question that I've had that I wrote in that letter in 1993. It took me about a week to write them. And I was up late and I cried for hours as I was writing, because most of the stuff in the lecture, I didn't know what he was talking about. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know somebody was selling drugs. I didn't know this behavior was going on. I didn't know. So, but I was hurt after that because brothers died and brothers were broken. These were men, teenagers, young men that I grew up with, that I fell in love with. These were my brothers. They were closer to me than my family. So, but long story short, over the years, he's answered, in hindsight, every question that I asked, every topic that I put in that letter, and it's helped me to guide young people, and as an adult now. He's a master teacher. He'd drop a bomb, boom, and it explode about 10 years later. Like, oh, I was like, that's what that was about. Okay, I got it.
One of the things that Mike said before Amzah spoke, I wanted to make sure I bring up. One of the things that came out after listening to that lecture, because I was in Carbondale, so I wasn't even in Chicago when a lot of things broke out and happened. So by the time I came back that spring of '93, I started getting into what's called groupthink, and I used to talk to Mike about it and Amzah about me coming up on that term groupthink, where you have people in the same environment and there's a certain type of thinking that's not challenged because everybody's focusing on that same wavelength and that same frequency. And as soon as it's challenged, then the one who is in leadership, if you got groupthink going on, they're easily to ostracize or make someone pretty much become rejected by that group because of what's considered groupthink. And in the minister's lecture, that August 7th of 1993, he put questions out there regarding, who is your taskmaster, and giving us the example of how Master Fard Muhammad talked about people and liken them unto a school of fish, and how the lead fish, if it goes in a direction, all the other fishes go in that same direction, and just the importance and the value of leadership. And again, when we talk about making mistakes, that whole principle of science, the acknowledgement of mistakes and the correction of errors, mistakes shall not exist. It didn't say that they won't happen.
That's right.
But they will not exist because we look at them, confront them, and then we begin to find ways to change the reality so these mistakes don't have to keep being made over and over and over and over again. And 30 years removed, this is the 30-year anniversary of Brother Aaron's passing. And when you begin to look at those things that came up out of that situation and those circumstances, and I think we said in the last interview, you're not talking about something in isolation. It was happening in, amongst different groupings, different people. And of course, when it comes to Black people, there was a rise of suicides going on during that time, even amongst Black people. That was unprecedented because our history of engaging in suicide as a solution is not like other ethnicities. Ours has always been traditionally low. We might drink ourselves to death and smoke ourselves to death or eat ourselves to death, but our people weren't the ones that would just be so quick to just end it like that. We took the slow route. However, over the past 30 years, we've seen the acceleration. It's an uptick of us using that as a solution to the conflicts that we feel like we can't resolve and the problems that we have that we feel like they can't be addressed fast enough. So I'm able to just go ahead and end it. So I think that in saying that, that was one of my first times beginning to be able to reconcile in my brain, what took place and what happened, that if we began to do the opposite of certain things, we'll be able to get the results that we need, because our generation and our group isn't the only ones dealing with that. So I just wanted to put that out there, that was one of the first things that I began to get into, once I heard that lecture several times, I began to look into, well, what is it about us that when we get into our groups and into our squads, what is it that we have to be mindful of so we don't fall victim to certain things? And that first thing that I began looking into was called groupthink. So, hey, what's up, Mar?
Hey, what's going on, brothers? How y'all doing, man?
Excellent, Brother Marvin. Excellent. Good to see you, Brother Marvin. Yes, sir. And we're going to come to Brother Marvin right now. So, as someone who, especially who was with the drill team and doing martial arts and security, the task force would be mentioned as like a group think in front of us. Like, oh, you doing that? But if we all wear the same suits and stuff, yeah, y'all doing that, but it could go off like the task force. And I'm like, I didn't understand if it's y'all saying it in a good way or in a bad way. So I'm glad that we are having these conversations, because we coming after that, it was like a cloud. So I'm glad that you all are explaining the good of what the task force is. So I'm like, all we trying to do is dress alike. All we trying to do is, you know what I'm saying, be the young squad that's popping. And we didn't have no understanding it was like a bad thing. So I'm glad that you all are, you know, breaking it down and all that good stuff.
Well, let me mention that. And where we got that from was the minister and the E-team originally. When they came back in the country, the minister had the mustard suit. Your father had a mustard suit. Musti had a mustard suit. The whole team had the mustard suit. And so we started emulating after our father. And that's where that came from. And we noticed as we started doing it as young men, the reception we got when we went out in the streets, when we went soldiering, it just helped everything. This is part of the reason why we was able to sell as many papers as we were. All that played a part in our development and our growth and everything like that. And so when we're out there soldiering, you know, I remember Akeem taught me a key word to say when we were soldiering. I went out there with him one day, just he and I. And that man, I watched him sell 500 papers. And he says, mention the school. You want to support the school, want to support our Black school, want to support the school. When people hear school, even if they don't believe in what we're doing, what we're saying, well, you know what? I'm going to give to their vision. They want a school, they got a school, whatever. I give $1 to that, or $2 or $5 or whatever. And that's how we just kept on, to the point we, like I said before, we were downstairs counting racks of money.
Yep.
Racks of money, you know. And I know Mike said something when I first got on, I want to mention real quick that the minister said in this particular lecture, I can't remember the name, but when he had to kind of jam up Brother Minister Shaheed, he said, a fool despises correction and a wise man loveth the proof. And that stuck with me all the way to this day. And I got my wife right now because of that. When we first met, we started having little disagreements or whatever. But if I was wrong, I knew how to back down and say, you know, hey, yeah, you're right. You're right. And that, she said, that was nothing that she ever saw before from any man. Because most men are like, oh, my mama never told me to say I'm sorry, or I'm wrong, you know, that kind of stuff, Negro stuff. So, you know, I'm like, no, if I'm wrong, if the bird told me I was wrong and I'm wrong, I'm going to correct it, you know, or if your way is correct, let's do it your way, you know. So that goes back to Mike when he's saying, you know, you got 50, 60-year-old people out here today, grown men, they, no, I ain't wrong. See, because next thing you know, y'all in an argument over nothing, but I ain't going to argue with you.
That's right. That's
yes,
right.
Sir. Excellent. So, and go ahead, bro, Marvin.
And I wanted to go ahead, brother.
No, I thought he called me. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to bounce off of something you said about selling the final call, because I mean that's something that I mean we fell in love with. Being out on the street, interacting with our people, and that is a part going back to the training. That training, I mean, to overcome fear. First of all, overcome the fear of approaching someone, right, with something good that you have, to be able to communicate clearly what your intentions are. But as brother Marv said about the school, man, I used my line, and to this day, hey, I'm top paper seller. I'm gonna get out there hour for hour out on the street. Ain't nobody gonna outsell me. But what I used to and what my line used to be was, would you help support our youth center? Would you like to support it? Because see, here's what it is. And this is what we were told. Akeem told us this. Don't go out there trying to teach no lecture and you want to get somebody to understand. No, man. The least common denominator to the greatest common denominator. People love seeing. We were young. We were 16, 17, 18, 18. The oldest among us was what, like 19? We were all babies. So when we were out there, same suit, same bow tie with it all, people looking like, damn, who is this? And so when we said, would you like to support our youth center? Would you like to support our school? We lived at the mosque. We lived at the university. That was our youth center. We didn't need no YMCA. Mosque Maryam, MUI, Muhammad University of Islam. That was our youth center. And so that's what I loved and felt, and that's what we share with the people.
Mike, you just hit something, Mike. Let me just say this real quick about, and this will go to Josh and any other believers that's listening over the nation who really want to grow their mosque or the youth. What we used to do was this. We went out fishing and we meet brothers on the street and they'd be drilling with us that night. Y'all brothers remember that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
They'd be drilling with us that night. They may, dreads wasn't in, and they may have a high top fade, whatever. They drilling with us that night, start writing their letter. They went to processing class, of course, and then we talked to sister Ali, and we had a fast-paced product, a fast-paced system. Before you know it, they was reciting, they was getting their answers, was marching them on in. Today, what I noticed, and this is not to any leadership or nothing like that, but I'm just going to say, I guess it's the training. We were not allowed to go out fusty and dusty. The white shirt had to be crisp and clean. Your fingernail. We spoke about the cleanliness last webcast, but I wanted to take it another level up. We wasn't allowed back then as FOI to go out and drill. Out there and soldier in our uniforms. I walk around now. We're not out here in Arizona, but when I was in Chicago, you see brothers out there in the uniform with a cap on, skull cap on. Brother done threw on the suit. You don't know if he's homeless and just found some paper somewhere at night and he's selling them because you wasn't supposed to be out there by yourself, for one. So I don't know if a lot of this was forgotten or what, but it's just the training, man. It's just. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I haven't seen any clean brothers at all. But it's been so many times I had people call me and say, I saw some guys selling that pound call. Like, what you got to do to go buy some? Like, he had oils and incense in one hand and pound calls in another. That just wasn't our way back then. Now, if it was, it just wasn't done back then. Maybe it's changed. I don't know.
The only thing you had in was the paper, the bean pie, or a tape or some other minister. That was it.
Exactly. That's about all you had. That was it. It was all something related to the nation or the minister. It wasn't. You can go out there on the side hustle and put on a suit and that'd be your day where you want to do your oils. But when you had the word in your hand, that trumpet in your hand, that's all you really needed.
To go back what Brother Enoch said, the group think, and Josh, I just sent you a picture. If you can share that at some point, if you can.
Yes, sir.
But
it's with the gray suits, ain't it?
The green ones, the green, yeah.
The green. All right, yeah, I remember that.
What Brother Enoch said, Mike and Marv said, we were all on the same accord. It was when you saw one, you saw everybody. So your suit had to be a certain way. Your bow tie had to be a certain way. Like I said, your shirt, as you're soldiering, there was a commonality in language because that was the training. So when you see one FOI, you saw all the FOI. And as Brother And as Marv just said, people are asking questions now. There's things happening here in Chicago that would have never happened in the 90s.
Never.
Would not happen in the early 2000s because the training, and again, this is not a shot at anybody. The training was never compromised. This is what it is. This is what it's going to be. Your father enforced that as supreme captain. This is how the training is going to be. This is how the brothers have to dress. This is the requirement. And there was no compromise on that.
Period, as my children say.
There was a brother in the early 90s named Elijah Muhammad. I remember
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He had that car.
Yeah, he met the God. He used to, after the meetings, he used to hang around with us and teach us what they did in the first. Everybody, the training that they got, that Master Farrakhan Muhammad gave them. He like, brother, we will see this little man come in, but he was so powerful. We didn't know who he was, but he was the God. He met Master Farrakhan Muhammad. And so he would teach us some of the things that he would teach them as FOI. And we would carry that into our training. How all the brothers have to speak the same language, to use the same wording to show unity, groupthink. So there was never any outliers or those who stood out like that. When we were in the community, there was one voice. So that's important right now. So when we have issues that come up in the world, now our training is still, until the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speaks on it, hold your peace. He's the point man. So where he go, we go. Where he say stay from, we stay from. What he say, we say. What he say, we don't say it. It was that unity, that group think, that training that made us successful and made the nation as popular in the 90s as it was then.
Exactly. I'll make a correction on that. I want a point of clarity. When we talk about groupthink, I hear what you're saying, and that's not what's considered groupthink. When you talk about groupthink is the practice or thinking of making decisions as a group in a way that discourages creativity or individual.
I get what you're saying. Oh, you coming from that perspective. I got you.
So unity.
Yeah.
And being one mind, one.
Right, you're talking about unity. And that's something different than groupthink, because it goes right against the what we used to say. You got to be a thinker to walk with Farrakhan.
Think of Farrakhan, yes, sir.
So,
What, to walk with who?
Got to be a thinker to walk with Farrakhan, sir.
Right. And so here's the thing and I'm so glad that Amzai made that Freudian slip. and Brother Enoch corrected it, because here's the crux, and it goes back to what you mentioned, Brother Josh, about the cloud, right? When you and brothers you're doing things, you all are coming up, you showing unity, you're doing your thing. You say, well, hey, you don't want to be like the task, and you're confused because you don't understand that. What are you talking about, right? So going back to Amzai and what Enoch just said, to go from being united of one mind, one accord, and it to be completely positive and moving in a direction that we desire to go it is not a very far step to going from there to going to or to falling into groupthink. Gotcha. What Brother Enoch is talking about. It can be a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
And the minister hit on that somewhat in the lecture. And I wanted to say that, but I wanted to, Enoch, was there something more you wanted to say about that?
No, go right ahead.
Okay. Because that you have to be very careful with that, because in every organization, especially an organization that's powerful, that is military based, you're going to deal with that groupthink element. You're going to have the unity and all of the best, but then you're going to have that groupthink element where, as we said, you have to be a thinker to walk with Farrakhan. If you aren't strong individually, self-examination, self-analysis, self-correction, if you can't apply that to yourself, you can't apply that to an instruction that you may be given, that is not correct. And everybody's following it because what? It was given by someone who is in a, but we have to be able to, as they say in the church, rightly parse the word, right? We have to be able to say yes, sir, no, sir, but we also have to be able to say as you were, sir. We were all those things, right?
Yep.
And that happens in the drill, the exercise of the gods. If the drill instructor gives an incorrect command, it's your duty and responsibility to say, as you were, sir. Not to hold yourself close, not to be afraid that you're going to be ostracized, to say, as you were, sir. That's a lesson. That's one of those lessons that came out of that time period for us. And how does that really become real? Because what we went through, you know, as I think it was Amzai, you just said, you talked about was it Amzai or Enoch? And you said that the minister asked, he said that he was going to ask the God.
I said that. That's what Brother Salim. Yep. Brother Salim told him that.
You know, during that time period, and you know, I mean, we were, the task force at that time period was the best of the FOI. The best among us was taken in Brother Aaron, in a way, in suicide. You could not sweep that under the rug. You could not, you know, if you have somebody on the fringes of an organization, the fringes of a movement, and something happens, you can kind of sweep it under the rug and you don't have to deal with it. That was undeniable. That had to be dealt with.
Yeah, I concur.
So the God gave us a situation, us personally, and the nation as a whole gave us a situation. The minister say trials purify. Trials purify. We were tried. We were all tried at that time. That was a period of intense trial. So when we say trials purify and the purification, when something is being purified, all of the things that are within, that are imperfect, that are nasty, that are incorrect, that are just plain wrong, they're gonna come out. So when that happens, that happened during that period, and you see people making reference to that time, and you don't know what they're talking about. It's just, you kind of throws, because with all due respect, people during that time who were in positions of authority or leadership didn't really know how to talk about it. Really, we were all going through trial. And I mean, personally, and many of us, I was pissed off because such and so didn't handle it right. They didn't let me talk to the minister. Da 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 da. Everybody was upset. It was a period. So when you talk about that period, see, I had to go. I was always like, I don't want to really use. I was kind of like on the fringes because I was coming home. You know, not that I would come home during the summer, be intensely involved in the mosque, the nation, the FOI, everything, and then go back to school. And then come back and be intent, and then go back to school, right? And in that, when I came back after graduation, and I'm like, oh snap, I'm home for good now. It's about to be on. It's on and popping. I ain't got to go back to school. I come back and Aaron's gone. Oh shit. Everything blows. So in that moment, for me personally, it was like, man, I had it threw me off. I was out for like a year, almost 2 years. I had my landscaping business. I'm cutting grass every day, pushing a lawnmower with headphones of the minister. I would go to, you remember Respect for Life bookstore right across the street from the Final Call. I would go there and I bought every lecture from the late 70s, 80s, all when, and that was my therapy. That was my, because I wasn't talking to anybody. Not too much from the I wasn't, so, but I had to deal with, all of us had to deal with, man, what is this thing? Suicide. What is this thing? Homosexuality, the roots of all of that. We had to deal with that. And today, after going through all of that, today, man, there's a balm, there's an understanding, there's an ability to speak to people, to speak to young people, to speak to older people who are going through those situations. And yeah, you can get it from, reading a book, but pain is our greatest teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pain, that's something that we couldn't run away from. We couldn't deny. We couldn't, when the atonement process, you look at, you take all of the teachings and put all that together, and you trying to figure, I mean, there are brothers, we all know, there's brothers and sisters who never recovered.
Yes, sir.
From other situations. The nation has always been enveloped in trials. So
And
this
will
is,
always be.
and we still here.
Please be.
So you go back, and what we went through, you go back through the history of the nation, and this is just a cycle of things that there's going to be those trials, there's going to be that pain, there's going to be those tragic situations. But as you know, I forgot what movie that was where it was talking about, it said, well, I go to the minister's words. He said, death is justified in the pursuit of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we lost as the task, we lost the best among us.
Mm-hmm.
We lost some of the best brothers from among us. And it gave us so much pain that those situations, those issues, we couldn't run from that. We had to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Why Enoch is doing what he's doing today? Why you is where he's at today? Why? From that pain of that time period. So when people talk about, oh, you don't want to, and try to look, man, if that is an atmosphere today, that's just ignorance, man.
Just ignorance.
That is necessary. That type of pain, that type of death is necessary. You talking about the resurrection of a people, man? We know Islam gonna bring out everything that's in us, bad, good, whatever. So it came out, and guess what? We still here.
Yes, sir.
We still here working. Maybe not the way that some people would like us to be,
Right.
but hell, you ain't our judge. We still.
One of the things, as you were saying that, Mike, one of the things that did come out that is very good, when you have to face how to do something new and do something different, there must be a principle that you can line yourself up with, so then you can gain balance when you're striving to do something new and different.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you all, especially Mike and Amza, you've heard me say this, and I may have said this to Josh before. When you look at approval, recognition, and validation, those three words, and for those who've never heard the minister speak on this, he actually wrote, it was an interview that he did with Essence Magazine. He talked about recognition and validation. And one of the realities that we have had and we still are, we got to face and deal with is that there has to be a balance where you're not just so gung-ho that you do not consider that all of us have come into the classroom of God. This is the classroom of God. This ain't supposed to be the classroom of savage ass niggas. It's the classroom of God. So if we're in the classroom of God, then that means, yes, we want the approval of Allah. We want the recognition of Allah. We want the validation of Allah. And if you come in any way that's opposite or less than that, then you have to be able to, like the Form 4 say, communicate that there's a misunderstanding going on around here. And we need to communicate that without fear that your approval is going to make me look a certain kind of way, or you're not validating me or recognizing me is going to make me look a certain kind of way. We had to go through that as teenagers. And that was part of my last conversation I had with Aaron, because Aaron actually asked me that summer of '92 when he came back from college. He asked me about, post and, watching what I was doing and, and asking me about, why you not a lieutenant right now in the task force, or why you, and at that time, when you're young, of course, and maybe when you're older, still, you want that validation, that recognition, that approval, but you begin to learn that, hold on for a minute, it ain't worth it if it takes away what God or what Allah is trying to build in me. If it takes away, oh no, you can keep that. I don't even need none of that. And so that's one of the lessons that I think that has come up out of that process and out of that particular trial, that gives us an opportunity to balance that pain factor. Pain is said to be the mother of adversity, right? Well, adversity, I'm sorry. Adversity is the mother of creativity. That's the correct quote. Am I right? Adversity is the mother of creativity.
I think so.
Adversity, and so pain accompanies anything that we strive, to accomplish. It's gonna have a degree of difficulty and pain attached to it. So we're now 30 years removed. However, we get a lot of people that's under us that really need some of the basics of what we're talking about, but they need it applied practically and demonstrated so they can understand how to use it in the context of them being 16, 20, 24, 25. They need it now more than ever, because they getting validation, Marvin, just from TikTok. They getting Instagram validation.
That's the sad part. That's the sad part.
Right.
And they getting it, and it's horrible. It's like, you get this, you do this challenge. It was one challenge to eat these different peppers or drink the different hot sauce, and people losing it on camera because they got snot coming all out their nose, and that's because they want to get likes. They want to get views. They want validation on social media from people they don't even know who they are. I just want to feel good that somebody watching me and somebody validating me. So we've gone 30 years now, we've gone to a whole different level now of seeking approval, recognition, and validation. It's on a whole different level now, and it's very dangerous.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Excellent. Thank you all for the comments. Sister Miriam says, teach. Thank you all for this reminder and blessing. Brother Daryl said the standard has to be raised and upheld by all. Can't wait to put this on YouTube. Brother Amzad, for you, yes. I wanted to ask about the importance of fatherhood. What advice would you give to future fathers?
I didn't grow up with my father. I knew who he was. Him and my mom divorced when I was 7. and it was a bad divorce, volatile set of circumstances. So he wasn't around as I was growing up. Throughout high school, there'll be a man here, a man there that would be in my life at different at school or whatever. But I didn't grow or learn an understanding of fatherhood until I came in the nation. When the minister would teach on fatherhood, so he became my example. Other brothers had become my example. Brother Eugene, brother, you called him E2, brother Charles. Again, your dad, and other brothers who were mentors for us. For me, the advice that I would give for those of us who did not grow up with our fathers, if you have children or want children, be what you did not have. So not having a father, I was to my daughters what I didn't have. And my daughters, to this day, 20, Aaliyah's 20, Nisa's 29, Aaliyah will be 24 end of this month. Yeah, they daddy got his faults, but I'm Superman to my daughters because of the example that I set for them. There was nothing that I wouldn't do or still wouldn't do for my children. If that means I had to go hungry or I was broke to make sure my daughters were taken care of, that's what I did. When I was married to their mom, there's certain things that my daughters did not have to do. There were certain things that my wife at that time did not have to do because that was my job. And I enjoyed being a father. So those who grew up with their fathers, to whatever degree, take the good that you have, that you learn from your father, those examples, and carry that over into your life with your children that you have now. Or if you're planning, take the good that you can remember, those examples set by your father. As a father, I'm constantly studying to be a better man. I'm constantly studying to understand fatherhood. I'm constantly growing and studying to understand womanhood because I have daughters. So I have to be able to guide them a certain way. And that can only be learned through study and practical application. I've made a lot of mistakes as a father. So I think last week, I think that was you who asked that question, made the comment. When my daughters were little, I would ask them, how was I doing my job? How have I been as a daddy? They would, Dad been mean this week, or you did that and you didn't have to whoop us with your pink ruler. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't shoot back at them. And I would just listen like, okay, fine. And even at 29 and 23, about to be 24, I still ask them those questions. How can I be a better father? How can I be a better example of a man? So my advice again, study, learn the lessons from the past, learn the lessons from the pain in our lives as men, regardless of age, to do better, to do the opposite of what created those mistakes and those errors, be the opposite of what caused the pain, and constantly study and put into practice what we studied to be better men and better fathers. I wasn't the best husband, but I think I would get a passing grade as a father. And again, the only ones who can give me that feedback are those who are parents already, like, man, Zai or Brother Hamzai, you should have did that a little different, or my children. Like Dad, having a conversation with, Aaliyah the other day. She was like, Dad, I remember, you gave me a whooping for this, that, and the other. I'm like, I don't remember that. I remember it. And she said it wasn't that serious. Can I say it wasn't that serious? Only the person who can say that is her. Like, Dad, she said it wasn't that serious, Dad. I'm like, you know what, baby girl, in hindsight, it wasn't. We could have just had one of them hard conversations and I talked you to death and we'll leave it there. So just reflecting over I'm constantly reflecting over my life as a father. How can I be a better father now that they're grown? So I don't interject myself now in their life. When they call for advice, I don't tell them what to do. I lay out variables. Well, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Before you make this decision, write out all this information so that you can make an informed decision. And so Anissa was like, Dad, I just miss being a little girl. You can just tell me what to do. Well, I'm sorry, that time has passed. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Make the decision for yourself, because this is your life now. So again, as I said last week, study to be a better man, study to be a better father. We have the best example amongst us, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We have the examples and guidance in the Bible, the Quran, the teachings on how to be better men, how to be better fathers. There are other books that are out here written by good authors on manhood, on fatherhood. Pick up those books and study, because the information is out here. And like Brother Wally said, recently, we don't want to read anymore. We have to read. We have to study. Everything is not just going to come through practical application. There has to be a foundation of knowledge with everything that we do. That's it.
Praise be to Allah, beautiful. And Sister Miriam said, all praises to our brother Amzai was the original girl dad. Respect. Thank you. And can't wait to put this on YouTube. All right, for you, brother. Okay, but I think Brother Michael dipped off. Brother Marvin, for you, on Facebook. Oh, yes, sir. Okay, Brother Marvin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. On Facebook.
Fell in the pool, that's all.
Okay, yes, sir. Brother Marvin's flexing about his pool. Okay, Brother Marvin. Brother Marvin, you have you always post about your being married and beautiful pictures of you and your wife. What advice would you give to future husbands?
Okay, future husbands. Marriage is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the weak. I was speaking with Amzai last week about this or whatever. My wife is not an MGT, but that doesn't mean anything. She's taught me a lot, like I said before, how to admit when I'm wrong. You know, even though I already knew how to do it, but she put me to the test to that. And as being a husband, as we learned in the test, there is no excuse. You know, when you say, why were you late? Or why this? No excuse. No excuse, sir. No excuse. You know, those lights got to be paid. You know, the responsibility level is just first and foremost. So I went from being able to go buy me whatever I want, a Harley, whatever, to now looking at, okay, it's the summertime out here in Arizona. Light bill going to be $600. Okay, that's going to go into some money that I planned on doing a little something for myself. Well, that's not going to happen this week. It's probably not going to happen this summer, that particular thing. So you have to just really put your mind in a mindset of making sure your wife, and I met her, she had 2 beautiful daughters, which is a whole nother thing. So, you know, I have 2 girls now. When everybody who knows me know I had a son in Chicago and have a son in Chicago. And dealing with 2 girls, I'm sure thoroughly aware of the makeup stage. And it's just like, you know, I've known them since they were like totally like just cute little girls and just wanted to just play little simple things around the house, to now we're in high school and, you know, I saw a boy and he's cute. And I'm like, what? I don't want you to think no boys are cute. Just, you know, so it's tough on me on that aspect. And then now we go to the mall. It's like, I don't want just to go to Charlotte Russe. I want to go to Gucci. So a lot of that comes from social media, seeing, you know, whatever they see on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, you know. And when I look at it as a 46-year-old man, and I say, well, dang, if you got access at this age to see all of this, how do you really process that? So I'm battling with social media, so you always, and you can't come into a situation like that and say, well, look, this is what the messenger said, this is what the minister said. Even if it was my children who were young and I wanted them to be in the minds, the further you push them to go that way, the more they're going to go the opposite way. The minister told me when I was 16 and I got into that situation where I got put out, and I never forget this in dealing with children. He said, if you got caught just fornicating, I wouldn't have put you out because that's nature and you're young and you're going to experience things. But you were out here selling death to our people. For that, I had to put you out. So I always correct them on things, but you learn how to pick your battles. And I have a lot of brothers I talk to all the time, like I call them like, hey man, look, did you ever feel like this might be it? Because we had a pretty heated argument, but those are the things that come and help you all bond. Because every time you all may disagree and have to kind of go and get to the root of things and come up with a solution together. And when you're wrong, again, sit back and say, hey, I'm wrong. And one book that I've been reading that's been very, very, very helpful is Brother Nuri's book, What to Do After I Say I Do. I may have it a little wrong, but it says something like that. And the book is powerful, man. And when he sold the book to us, he said, I'll see you all on y'all 10-year anniversary, And I know the wife's kind of like, well, let's see what this book is about, But I've been reading it, I haven't completed it. But basically, a key thing that he said that I didn't come into my marriage with that I think is good for everybody is that when you say I do, you're not saying I do because you're getting married. When you get married, it's a piece of paper, but what you're trying to do is become one with each other. That's what you're trying to do. When you engage, all fun and games, everybody's happy. You sit on the same side of the table when y'all go out to eat. You get married, y'all sit on the other side of the table, ain't nobody smiling, nobody talking, everybody looking at their phone, So he just really has helped me to see now how to really communicate better with my wife. He say, hey, he asked a rhetorical question. When was the last time you and your wife did something spontaneous? And everyone's answer was, about a month, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. And he said, what was the reason? Oh, just don't have time. He said, no, it's not you don't have time. It's you're tired. You're tired because you didn't got lazy. You didn't start working out, or you're not working out. You didn't gain a little weight. You're eating, going to sleep. He said, you see people who got married a couple of years later, they done plumped up a little bit, or, so I've learned that I have to, if something is wrong with my flowers, it's not the flower, it's the farmer. So I'm always checking myself and correcting myself, and I'm very careful on making sure I please Allah for one, but I also want to make sure my wife is always thoroughly maintained. From just watching the examples of the minister and Mother Khadijah, being honored to live with them and see how they interacted as a young boy. And now I'm in that situation where the responsibility is on me when a bird dies in my pool. Like while I'm talking, that's why I'm looking away, because a lizard just ran on in a pool and I got company coming soon. So, I would just say to young brothers, just don't get married just because you want some sex. Because I know, and some people have gotten married because they got a sister pregnant. And I know some people might disagree with me when I say do what you want to do, but I'm gonna say this: if you just get married because you got the sister pregnant and you don't know how, and you still living with your mama, and you don't know what it is to take care of a child or even yourself, you're going to possibly mess up that woman and that child. If you just horny little young fella out here, or woman, just whatever you do out there, as the minister says, between you and your God. Don't bring everybody else into your mess, especially not an innocent child or a beautiful sister who could be with a brother that can really deal with her, or vice versa. So that's what I would say to the young brothers or anyone looking to get married. And I've only been married 2 years, but I feel like through the talks I've had with brothers who've been married for 50, 60 years, that me and my wife, we're gonna be all right. We're friends. We're friends. We're friends, brother. We can talk about anything. And as you see on Facebook, we go everywhere. We do everything together. They see her, they see me. They see me without her. They, what's wrong? Where you at? You know, so, and we love being around each other, man. So that's that.
Beautiful. Praise be to the Lord.
One real quick interjection. You all talked about Brother Richard, who was the first officer when we all came in. He told me something. I was painting with him one summer. He said, you know, Brother Hamzat, one of the problems in marriages that always lead up to divorce, and I learned this the hard way. He said, people don't fall out of love with one another. They fall out of like with one another.
Right.
The young man, like, man, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, here you go, Brother Rich, with this stuff again. And I'm painting, and I'm like, and I pause. Like, that don't make sense, but it does. I learned that later even in my divorce. It wasn't that I didn't love her anymore. We had our issues. I stopped liking her. This is in hindsight now. Because we're growing, we're changing, we made mistakes, we're in pain. And of course, that which caused you pain, you don't love, you don't like. And I would just throw that in there.
No, that's a beautiful thing. And that's why I say we are best friends. We are friends, man. We can do everything together. We like going places together. And we're planning a trip right now for her birthday next month. I don't know where, but somewhere. Y'all got excuse me. I was fighting with this damn lizard, man.
Yes, sir. We're going to get back to it, Brother Marvin. Okay, we got 2 more questions. One for Brother Michael. Is Brother Michael still there?
He just came on a second ago.
Yes, sir, Brother Michael.
Yes, sir. I'm still here, Brother Josh.
Yes, sir. Do you have children?
Yes, sir. I have 2 beautiful daughters.
Praise be to Allah. What advice would you give to future fathers?
Brother, wow. So I have 2 beautiful daughters, 16 and 5. And I try to think of myself as having been a good father, but I've made a lot of mistakes. One of the things in 2001, this is an answer to fatherhood, and then this actually goes back to our training. In 2001, a brother gave me a call and talked to me about a job position that was open, working with fathers. And so I went over to the Urban League and I talked to him about it. And I met a brother named Chris Moore and some other brothers, Kirk Bush, and I was like, wow. And it was a fatherhood program that had recently started from brothers who had went to the Million Man March and had been working to do something based on what they were inspired to by the minister. Mm-hmm. And so I came on board in 2001. It was called the Male Involvement Program at the Chicago Urban League. And I came on board and worked there in different capacities for the next almost 10 years on and off. But during that time, we built one of the largest fatherhood programs in the state of Illinois. And when I talked about the things that, why are we doing what we're doing today, you know, there were certain things that we did, certain things that I was able to bring from our experience. And we built a brotherhood. And that brotherhood, as I was giving my contribution to it, it was always reflecting, it was always trying to institute the principles. And I apologize, brothers, I'm moving. But I was always trying to institute the principles that we had learned in the nation, in the FOI, in the task force. And so one of the things that I would tell young fathers, as Brother Amzai talked about, one of the big issues that we have as fathers is that many of us never had the example. And that which you have never seen before, that which has never been exemplified to you, it's hard to be that. So for young brothers, man, we need to be a part of a brother. You know, we need to be a part of a brotherhood that is positive, that is promoting the best of who we are as men, that teach that our job is to respect and protect, that we are to be responsible as men. And it's just like the mastermind principle, what you surround yourself with. If you look at the 10 people that you surround yourself with, you're pretty much going to be on the level, in the mix of what those 10 people do, what they think, how much money they make. The mistakes that they make will be your mistakes. Their successes, you will be able to build off their successes. So one of the things, and it's been so much said already, I just wanted to make this point, is that it is extremely important as young men, as young fathers, as young husbands, to be involved in a group of men. Surround yourself. If you just get married, you can't keep hanging with your boys that are single, man, because married men and single men do different things.
Yes, sir.
When you a father, you can't just hang with your boys. They don't have any children. They don't understand. They're gonna be calling you to do stuff you can't do because you have responsibilities that they don't have. So it requires you to change your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And if you have uncles, if you have find a group. If you're in the FOI and you got a group of brothers, you know, and you get married or you become a father, go, man, find you a brother that's intelligent, that you respect, and talk to him. Let him know, man, hey, I don't know how to do this thing, man. And they know that. They know that. So if you as a young man actually seek a mentor, seek guidance, brother, I mean, if you're in the FOI, it's gonna be brothers that are happy to give you that, happy to share with you. If you're not, if you're in a church, if you're in any type of group, or if you don't have a group, go find one. Go online, man, and find you a fatherhood support group. Find you a support group. Find you some people who are involved and interested in doing and in the process of doing what you're doing. Because people that are not are only going to take you off the path. So that's the main point I wanted to make on that, because having a brotherhood that is supportive is like, man, it's just nothing like that. Because when you make mistakes and you're by yourself on an island, you don't know what to, you don't have a criterion to figure it out. But when you have people who have your best interest in heart and have some experience, they can help guide you. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing that we need as a people and as men, is guidance.
Beautiful. Excellent teaching, Brother Michael. And thank you everyone who's watching it. We put this on YouTube. Brother Amzai, Brother Enoch, as well as Brother Michael. We got to get a part 3. But Brother Enoch, I wanted you to close it out with a quick question for you, sir. The being married, how has being married changed you?
Okay. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna answer your question about how has being married changed me. A young brother brought up an interesting question. Me and Amzai was, in discussion with him about 3 Beyoncés. And will you ever get to the point where you just don't, where you don't, want 3 Beyoncés and 3 different locations, and will you ever get to that point? And so I didn't get a chance to communicate about that, and it connects with how marriage has changed me. Anytime something is new to you, that which is new stimulates the brain, so we get chemicals that get released just because we experiencing something new. You know what I mean? Whether the new car, new clothes, and in our cases, we feel excited with new books. We be like, yeah, I got this new, So when it comes to something that's powerful, in a being as powerful as a woman, you know, when you start looking at the reality that you're dealing with the self, spirit, mind, emotion, and body, you're dealing with another being. So no matter how pretty the face, no matter how curvy the body, that face and that body has within it a certain type of spirit, mindset, and an emotional state. And a pretty woman could be turned, could become ugly to you just because of her disposition.
Yes, sir.
You know, just because of, you know, she could be fine as Beyonce. However, when you speak with her and you have conversations about basic things, she turn you off. You don't like the movie she like. You don't like the food she like. She don't know how to cook. Don't want to cook.
Facts.
You start finding out all kind of stuff, and so that Beyonce, it turns to something totally different. You know, you looking like, man, you was a Beyonce to me. Now you're a Medusa. I can't even look at you no more.
Yes,
you
sir.
know?
Yes, sir.
So that's the short answer, but I wanted to make sure I got back to that question because that was an important question. And I won't go into the experience I had dealing with that Beyonce question, because I had an experience where the equivalent of a Beyonce, I had that kind of experience before when I was younger. And I can tell you, BBD was right. You can't trust.
Can't trust it.
Belle Biv DeVoe was right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when you start talking about marriage, I'm gonna put this out there. Brother Marvin was communicating about the book that he had read, and that's a very good book. And of course, my brother Nuri, our brother, we support him and his efforts to put the wisdom out there so that everybody can get something from it. I remember hearing years ago about when you enter into a relationship, and especially into marriage, the idea is for two to come together, and they supposed to come together to become one. That's the idea, right?
Yes, sir.
So Brother Amzad was talking about, you got the practical application, but you got to have the study. You got to have the theoretical framework, something that you can base what you're doing off of. Well, guess what? If Brother Michael said, hey, y'all want to eat? Let's go get some breakfast. Well, we go to breakfast, go to Let's Eat to Live out here in Chicago, and we say, well, we want an omelet, but we want a 2-egg omelet. Well, we're not gonna feel too good if the chef shortchanges us and putting Amzad's, give him a half an egg and then a fourth of an egg and say that's a 2-egg omelet. And then Mike, he only gets 1/4 of an egg, and then I get a third of an egg and a half of an egg. We both look at our plates like, man, this don't look right. Are you sure you did 2 eggs? He's like, no, I gave you a fraction. Each egg was incomplete. It wasn't, wasn't put in the bowl together. Well, guess what? When we meet and we get with our significant others, am I a full, healthy person? Am I whole in and of myself? Or is it half of Brother Enoch or a third of a Brother Enoch? 2/3. And then the sister, is she a half of a sister or a fourth of a sister or 3/4? A lot of times we're not complete in and of ourselves, but we have expectations of one another, and we pull on one another based upon those expectations. And so a lot of times when we start talking about marriage, we don't like the changes that marriage produce, because marriage will have you question yourself. It'll have you asking some questions, and praise be to Allah, we have been married, my wife and I, we got married in 2001. So we're coming up on our 22nd, 23rd year, 22nd year. And we probably went through 5 summers in a row where we talked about getting divorced. 5 summers in a row. Every summer, this is it. Done. We get the divorce, that's what it is. And 5 summers straight, we did that, And so it became a thing where, okay, we gonna, got some counseling. We had marathon counseling. I'm talking about, I don't know if anybody ever been counseled as long as we were being counseled. We was in a counseling session for 8-9 hours for 2-3 days in a row. 8-9 hour counseling. But it was needed though. It was really needed. And so, yes, it has changed me in a way where it makes me have to function with more empathy, strive to do a lot of self-checking. Michael had mentioned the whole self-analysis, self-examination, self-correction. The whole basis for community development is your self-improvement. That's the basis for marriage too. It's the basis for marriage too, because we are being pulled upon in ways that you will not ever get pulled upon, except if it's a woman that you care about and love. She's gonna pull on you.
Right.
And when I was getting pulled on with my first marriage, because I got married when I was in college, I wasn't ready for that kind of pulling. I thought I was. I wanted the practical application, but I didn't have a strong enough base of knowledge and understanding. I didn't study enough, So, in some people's critique of it, this is a legalized fornication process, where we want the benefits, we want to experience that tilt. we want to be able to experience it in a righteous way. But we're not supposed to engage in legalized fornication. So we had to learn that, okay, look here, you got to do better. And so in this process, the changes that were made, the first change is that, look, truth is supposed to run the house. That's what's supposed to run your home. That's supposed to run the mosque, your organization. It's supposed to be truth. And as Brother Michael was saying, a lot of us don't like to be corrected, even if somebody's coming with truth. So we had to learn in that proper way of handling people. There's a certain way that you got to communicate truth, because it can't be communicated with the hate or the envy or the jealousy or the whole competitive spirit. You can't give people truth and it's not backed by love. It's not being propelled by love. I really do care about you. So that's the only way I'm being careful in saying what I'm saying, because as Brother Wali said, when you interviewed him, we want to appeal to the God in our brother and sister. We want to appeal in the best way, and of course it is tough. It is difficult, especially if you gotta work at it. You gotta keep on telling them over and over and over again something. It's rough. However, we're attempting the uphill road.
That's right.
What is uphill road?
You're a slave.
You're a slave. And so the slave in me gotta go, the slave in her gotta go. But that's a process.
That's right.
And even if you get a white woman, now you gotta free the slave master.
Oh.
Listen, and Brother Enoch and Brother Michael, as well as Brother Amza, I want to thank everyone who's watching. We got another interview coming up right in like 5 minutes, but I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the People's Podcast. You have given us amazing information as well as inspiration. You all have been transparent. And I look forward to a part 3. We got to do a part 3, and I look forward to learning more. We look forward to learning more from you brothers. This is very timely. Can't wait to upload this to YouTube so that we can help spread this word all across the world.
It ain't nothing but a task.
Brother Josh, thank you very much.
Brother Josh,
look, I would be remiss, Brother Enoch has been hitting me in the chat to talk about NOISA and my experience at college and how that developed. We gotta do that for our part 3, brother.
Absolutely.
So was your school the second, Mike?
What'd you say?
Was your school the second chartered Nation of Islam Student Association?
Yes, Alcorn State University was second. South Carolina State University, then Alcorn State University, Jackson State University, and Brother Jackie was at in Atlanta at
Is it Morehouse?
At I think he was at Morehouse. I think it was Morehouse.
Okay, yes, sir.
I had to check that, but
Yes, sir.
those were the first 4 schools.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right,
Okay,
we'll
well,
come
we'll
back.
definitely come back with the part 3. I mean, with the NOYSA, because we need that history. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sirs.
Wa alaikum salam.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you all very much, and thank you all for watching.